A major vulnerability in the SAP Netweaver is making headlines. Hackers exploited CVE 2000 2530 1324, a flaw in the SAP Visual Composer, to breach Linux systems and deploy autocolor, a remote access Trojan. One of the victims was a US-based chemicals company. The company's name wasn't disclosed, but the incident was serious. It was fast, quiet, and effective, exactly the kind of attack security teams lose sleep over. So what exactly went wrong? The vulnerability allowed unauthenticated remote code execution. Basically, attackers didn't need a password or any legitimate access. They could just walk through the front door. SAP released a patch quickly, but in the time it took organizations to deploy it or even realize it existed, damage was already being done. And that's where the story becomes useful. Not just as a cautionary tale, but as a way to understand the difference between vulnerability management and risk management, two terms that often get used interchangeably, but actually mean very different things. Vulnerability management is about identifying weaknesses in your systems and fixing them. It's technical, often automated, and usually driven by scanners and CVEs. In this case, the CVE was known, and the patch was available. From a vulnerability management perspective, it was a clear task: update the system. Risk management, on the other hand, is about understanding impact. It's broader. It asks, if this vulnerability is exploited, what happens to our business? Is this system mission critical? What kind of data does it hold? Who depends on it? That's the distinction. Vulnerability management says, here's what's broken. Risk management says, here's what's at stake. And when the two aren't aligned, that's when organizations get caught off guard. Patches are delayed, priorities are unclear, and real-world consequences follow. Think about SAP Netweaver in this case. It wasn't just any system. It was tied to supply chain operations, human resources, accounting. A compromise here wasn't just an IT issue, it was an operational risk. So the vulnerability should have been escalated, not just logged. That's the kind of decision that risk management helps surface. Of course, it's easy to say that in hindsight. But in practice, it's hard. Most teams are juggling hundreds, sometimes thousands of known vulnerabilities. The key is having a way to connect technical findings to business priorities. Not every CVE is critical, but some, like this one, carry far more weight than others. And that's really the takeaway. Vulnerability management finds the problems. Risk management helps you understand which ones actually matter. One is about exposure. The other is about context. This breach wasn't unique, and it won't be the last. But it's a good example of how those two disciplines, vulnerability and risk, aren't in conflict. They're complementary. The real value comes when they're working together.